All right, so you'll see at the top of the website up here, we are in the 191st convening of the General Court of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And I believe that Massachusetts has the oldest legislature. And I believe that we actually have, and I have to double check the oldest constitution. And that's a wonderful and exciting thing for Massachusetts. So when there is a convening of each legislature, it is known as either the 190th convening of the General Court of Massachusetts, or currently in the 191st convening of the General Court of Massachusetts. And then in 2001, we will move on to the 192nd convening of the General Court of Massachusetts. And all of this, like I said, is very exciting in terms of Massachusetts history and the progress that we have made. There are, across the top, a number of key tabs that you can use to connect with the work of the legislature. And I'm going to walk you through a number of them. I've just noticed Patty has joined us. Welcome, Patty. Thank you so much for participating today. Okay, so very quickly, we are using the General Court website.
Please enter your access code followed by the pound or hash sign.
We are using the General Court website to find contact information for legislators. So this one's pretty simple. You have legislators that are grouped into various categories. So if you're looking for a representative, simply you can go ahead and click on representatives. And here's a long list of all the representatives that are in the legislature at this time, which is very exciting. Same thing with the Senate members. You have all the senators here. If you are looking for your legislators, or if you're trying to help someone find their legislators, there is this little tool over here where you can search for your legislators. So, for example, I live at 86 Orange Street in Clinton. And these are my legislators. It used to be that it was not as specific. So I mentioned before, I'd like all of the developments that they have incorporated. It used to be that I could search by town and it would give me the House member and the senator for my town. But because it was not specific to my street address, I would actually see pop up two different senators. And I had to know which of the two senators was mine. And you'd have to go to another site to find that information. But again, this is an improvement that has been made recently where you're able to use the court website for identifying your specific elected officials. Just as a side note, if you're helping someone find sort of from top to bottom, from local officials all the way up to Congress, Where Do I Vote MA is a great resource for finding all of that information. But if you're looking for your state elected officials, the General Court website will give you that information, which is fantastic. So oftentimes when I'm walking people through or advocacy training, I will talk with them about the importance of knowing who their legislators are, and knowing who their elected officials are, again, at all levels of government, and then why they should do that. And I often say it's your responsibility to build a relationship with your legislators. And so then I'll talk about how you can use, again, the General Court website to find out some information about the legislator before you begin to meet with them. So here, my representative is Harold Naughton, and I can find here on this page information about his contact at the State House, as well as information about his district office. I'm going to try to stay focused on just the components of this General Court website and not try to slip into advocacy training, but I will kind of talk about why it's important, or how you can use the General Court website to support your advocacy work. So again, usually I talk about why it's important to know about your legislator and to build a relationship. I talk about this fantastic little component here, which is the biography. Legislators have different amount of information that they include here. Some people have lengthy multi-paragraph biography. Some people like my representative just has sort of bulleted information about their bio. But it's a great place to start in terms of informing yourself about your legislator or about the legislator that you're planning on meeting with. Any questions regarding contact information for legislators right now? The other important component of this tab is leadership. So if you're someone who's doing advocacy work and you're looking for someone who can be a champion for your bill, or you want to influence support for your initiative, it's good to know who's serving in leadership, because leadership is who the Speaker or the Senate President is looking to in order to gauge, again, the support for a particular issue or initiative. And so you want to kind of have a familiarity with the people that are playing that role, and that information can all be found here. And just like I clicked through to Representative Naughton and was able to find information about his bio and his district, you can do the same here. So for example, we'll use Cynthia Stone Cream, or Senator Cream. Again, all of her contact information is included here. Her biography, again, just in bulleted form, but that's okay. We have a little bit of some background that we can begin with. And then also her district. So if you are going to go and meet with Senator Cream, it would be really useful for you to know that she represents the towns of Wellesley, Newton, and Brookline. Because if you have someone in your network, you can bring them with you to this meeting, and she is more likely to respond to a constituent than she is to an advocate. So kind of being mindful of, who's your audience and how do you want to connect with them is really useful. And again, the General Court website is a great tool to inform yourself in advance of some of these meetings. Okay. Again, I'm going to move on to the committee tab, but before I do, any questions regarding the legislators tab? All right. I noticed that you guys are on mute, which is great in terms of keeping background noise down, but if you do have a question, feel free to unmute yourself or use the chat function. You can type in questions as well on the chat function of the toolbar on the right-hand side of your screen. All right. So over here, we've got the committee tab. So in Massachusetts, we are one of only a small handful of states that have joint committees. What that means is typically what would happen in most other states is that a bill would originate in one of the two houses, so either the House or the Senate. And then it would go through a primary committee, it would work its way up, it would be heard by, again, on the floor of the House, for example. And then if it was passed by the House, it would have to go over to the Senate and begin the committee process once again. But in Massachusetts, we have joint committees, which means there are members of the House and the Senate that sit on the committee that's reviewing legislation. Just a little bit of extra information for you. So the committees are decided each year, and each session. So sessions begin in the odd number year, and then they conclude in the even numbered year. So we are right now, again, in the 191st convening of the General Court of Massachusetts. It began in January 2019. It will conclude in December 2020. And at the beginning of each session, there is a conversation about rules and committees, who's the chairs and members of those committees, and all of those things are worked out by leadership before the work begins. And so there are certain committees which we have had for quite some time: Committee on Higher Education, Committee on Housing, Committee on Judiciary. And then there's some new committees, like, for example, Committee on Marijuana Policy. This committee did not exist just a few years ago because it wasn't necessary, and now it is. I'm sure you can imagine that when the first General Court was convened, we did not have a joint committee on telecommunications and utilities and energy, but now we do. So here we are, all the committees. You might know that when a bill is filed, it first goes to the clerk's office, where it has a docket number. The clerk then makes a decision about which committee will review the bill. And this can actually be a really integral moment in a bill's success, depending on if it goes to a committee that's going to be favorable or receive it positively, or if it's going to be a committee that is not likely to move it. Again, it can be a make or break moment in the path of a bill on its way to passage. I like to share information about the committees because I think that it helps people understand, again, both the path of the bill as well as its important moment in a bill's history or initiative's history along the way. I often give the example about if you're an education advocate, you are certainly going to want to know not only who are the members of the Education Committee, but you're also going to want to know which bills have been referred to the Education Committee. Because you, again, as an education advocate, probably have a lot of experience as well as information that you can share with members of the committee as they're making decisions about policy. And if a policy will advance or not, or if a policy should be amended before it advances, or if it should, frankly, not be moving forward in the process. And so this is where you can go to educate yourself about the bills that have been filed. So you can see here across the top, the bill, when it is assigned to committee, it loses its docket number and gets a House number. And so here it is, H41, so this is House Bill 41. This is the title of the bill. This is the person who, or the office that has filed it. And then this is when it arrived in committee. Soon what we'll see over here, and has it been scheduled for a hearing. You can, at this point, go ahead and click on the bill. And you're able to see a number of things. You're able to see, again, who has filed the bill, and you're able to see the path of the bill. So you see the bill was filed by the House, and it was referred to the Joint Committee.
I will be there. All right, thank you.
Pardon me for a second. I was just putting the participants on mute. So you're able to see that it's been filed by Governor Baker, and it has been referred to the Joint Committee on Education. Senate concurred just means the Senate agreed with the action. As you move through, as the bill moves through the process, there will be a number of other entries here, so that, and again, various points where you're able to assess who's sort of the decision maker at that point in the bill's progress. You're also able to, you should be able to look at the text of the bill. Let me see if I can find an example for you. Seems like you can't at this moment, but I will show you what that looks like in a second. Let me take a quick step back and we can talk about the members. So again, if you're an education advocate, you're going to want to know who's in leadership of the committee, and then who are the members of the committee. And you're going to want to build a relationship with these folks so that they will look to you as a partner, again, when it comes time to evaluating the policies that are before them. So just like we could take a look at my legislator, Rep. Naughton, we can take a look at Rep. Peisch and see what are the various committees that she serves on, what's the content of her biography, and what's the district that she represents. All of these are bits of information that you can use, again, in order to be a more effective advocate. Any questions regarding the committee tab? Okay. I want to pop over to the bills because I would like to show you how it's possible to track a bill through the process. I'm going to see if I can show you what it looked like in the last session. Now, this is another thing that has changed from our work using the general court website in the past. It used to be that you could only see the bills that were in the sort of review legislation in the current session. I think that the website now, let's see if I'm able to go. Try it one more time. Here it is, over here. So it won't let me, which is unfortunate. It will only let me search this particular session. It sometimes, there we go. Thank you for your patience with me. Let's try this one more time. There we go, yay. Thank you so much for your patience with me. Okay, so what I wanted to show you was an act providing for equitable coverage and disability policies. This is a bill that was filed, well, it's been filed in many sessions in the past, but it was filed for the last time in the 2017-2018 session because after many years of work, we were finally successful. And I'm so glad that I'm able to show you this because, as I mentioned earlier, we're at the start of the 2019-2020 legislative session, and so most bills have are still in the process of being signed to a committee. Most committee hearings have not been scheduled, and so there's not too much to show you at this point. But I'm able to reference back to the previous session and kind of walk you through the process, and then walk you through decision points in the process, which is, again, an exciting thing that we're able to see this and to be informed about details that can help us refine our advocacy work. So here we go. This is an act providing for equitable coverage and disability policies. If you click on this tab here, you're able to take a look at the text of the bill, which is really exciting. And then you're able to see here, this is the general laws. And one of the improvements that I would recommend actually in the future is that they can like hyperlink this particular section right here so that it will bring you from the bill text to the language in the general laws that would be amended. But that's, I guess, for their next revision when they give me a call and ask about my opinion on that. You're also able to download it. If you click here, you can get a PDF version, which you can then save and distribute to members. I'm not going to go ahead and, because my computer will take a while to open it up, but I could save it in my file, email it to my fellow advocates so that they have it as an easy reference as well. You see here the process that the bill moved. It was filed at the beginning of the session, see, 2017 in January. It went to financial services. Again, it was important for us to know who was serving on financial services. Now, this is the membership this particular session, but it would also, we were taking a look at what the membership was in the previous session. And these are all the folks that serve on that committee. Again, we're getting a sense for what are their biographies, what are the districts that they're serving. Do we have partners in those districts that can work with us to move them, to build support for the legislation. Then the next step was to see, to flag the hearing date. So good advocacy is part of that process is having a relationship with members of the committee and kind of working to get advance notice of when the hearing is. I believe the requirement is not more than 2 days. So if they're going to hear a bill, they only have to let the public know 2 days in advance, which is unfortunate if you are an advocate that wants to go and speak to the committee about the bill. So if we're able to get a sense from members of the committee about generally when they think that the bill might be heard, that's great. If we're able for them to tell us the exact date, it's really fantastic because then we can line up speakers. And the worst case scenario, we're watching this website pretty closely, and we get at least 2 days notice that we can send someone from our team up to the State House to speak in support of the legislation. Massachusetts is also one of only a handful of states that allows the public to present at committee hearings. Most other states, as well as in Congress, you have to be invited by a legislator to present testimony. But everybody in Massachusetts has the opportunity to sit before the committee and to share their perspective on the legislation that's being heard. Every single bill has a hearing. After that hearing, there's a decision about what will happen with that legislation. One of three things can happen. Either the bill is reported favorably, or it receives an unfavorable report, or it's sent to study. I have, in my work with the commission, never seen an unfavorable report. The vast majority of legislation is sent to study, which effectively means that it's dead for that particular session. It's possible that it can come out of study, but very unlikely. So you're looking for a favorable report. In this particular case, the committee bent the rules. There is a date on the calendar which all legislation must come out of the committee and must move on or must be sent to study. And so what you can see here, on 2/7/18, as well as 5/14, is that there is an extension of the reporting date. So they sort of put off making a decision twice here. And then what happened was it accompanied the Senate version of the bill, same language. So I can click on this, and what will happen is we will shift over to the Senate version of this House bill, which was filed by Senator Lewis. So coming out of committee, the two bills were combined. The House bill and the Senate bill were combined. The bill was retained the House number, which is H482, and it went to steering and policy. And again, this is a decision-making point where we are working to be in contact with members of the House Steering Committee and build the case for the bill at this time. So we're sending letters to them, we're visiting with them in their district, we're using the information that's available on this website to have as targeted conversations as possible. And then all of this information here from 7/3/18 is this procedural work of the bill being read 3 times before it is taken up for discussion and potential amendments by the House. So bill read 3rd time, amended and passed to be engrossed. If you slip back up here, you can read the amendments that happened on the bill. Let's give it a second. So when the bill is filed to when the bill is passed, oftentimes there are changes that are made. If you go ahead and click here, you can see the sponsor, but you don't actually get to see, and this is where my colleague who does not love the General Court website as much as me would gripe about a lack of transparency. So there is an amendment, and you can see the number of the amendment, but you don't get to see what it is, which is a bit frustrating. Again, when they do future updates, perhaps that is something that they might be able to add. Pardon me, let's get back to that page. So here we go. So the bill was amended. Passed by, amended and passed to be engrossed. It went to the Senate. The Senate enacted the bill, and then it was laid before the governor. Now what I could do is go ahead and click here, which gives me the language, and then I can go back and compare this language to the bill language, and I can see where the difference is. Again, ideally, the amendment language would be included here as well. But all in all, I think that as you're tracking a bill and as you're thinking about decision points throughout the process, this is a pretty fantastic tool. Does anyone have questions about tracking legislation, about the different components of the bill tab of this website? Okay, so hearing none, I'm going to move forward. Another exciting component of the General Court website is the budget. And this has really been well developed over the last couple of years. I would say that the budget is probably the least transparent bill that the legislature is responsible for managing. And the reason is because, or the reason that I would assert, is because it's just huge. And they have to move it very quickly. They've got a lot of deadlines that they're responsible for meeting, which they do bend the rules on, but they are a little bit harder to bend or break the rules than many of the other things that they are managing at the State House. So what they frequently end up doing is kind of bundling amendments together and managing them with voice votes as opposed to recorded votes. And if you've been watching the news, you might see that sort of the new legislators that have come into the building are really pushing this particular issue around transparency and about counting votes and getting people on the record. And I think that my opinion is that is generally a very good thing, to ask legislators to be accountable for their votes and for their representation of their districts via their votes. So again, maybe there will be some progress, both in terms of transparency and recording of votes, and then how it's reported out on the website. But in the meantime, I think that they have made progress from where they were in the past. So right now we're at the very beginning of the process. The governor has released his budget, which is essentially a statement of priorities, and is a way for him to share with the legislature where he would like to invest resources for this fiscal year. And I'm going to show you this because it's really the only thing that I can show you as part of the budget. And then I'll walk you through the budget process but I won't be able to show it to you in the same way. Again, it's pretty huge, so it takes a while to open up. So if you are watching the budget because you care about a particular line item, it's useful to know the line item, and if you're working with an advocacy organization, they should provide it to you. Let's see if we're able to find the commission's line item. Try that again. Sorry, you guys.
Hi, Jill. How did you, where did you get to that search?
Sure. So, thank you so much for that question, Phyllis. So this is a PDF. Here, I'll back out of it. Or can I back out of it? Essentially, I control left until the little search prompt popped up, and I know our line item. Our line item is 0950-0000. And so this is where we are in the governor's budget. Operation for the Commission on the Status of Women, $173,000. And there we go. So this is where we begin our negotiations regarding our budget. If you are looking for, you can use the search function to look for other various things like childcare, but it's going to be, because this document is almost 300 pages long, a little bit more tedious for you to be searching through the document using kind of a search function without a specific line item. So it's another thing where it helps to have specifics, like if you have a specific bill number, like an H482, or the specific line item 0950, it really is helpful as you're searching the website. If you don't have that information, it's just a little bit more tedious. All right. Then again, so the process is that House Ways and Means will release its budget. And again, as soon as it's released, I'll do the very same thing. I'm going to open up the document and I will search for our line item. And then I'll make a decision about, does that number reflect what we're hoping to see, or do we need it to be something else? We have, for your information, asked for an increase in the budget so that we can continue to provide support to the regional commissions, as well as augment some of our programs. So if House Ways and Means says $173,000, what we'll do is we'll work with partners in the legislature to ask them to file an amendment. So the budget is ultimately a bill. And so the process is very similar to a bill. We'll file an amendment to the recommendation that House Ways and Means has presented. And then there is House debate, which you see right here. And again, during this process, there is this hope that you'll be able to track some of that conversation, although I can't imagine you'll be able to track all of that conversation amongst legislators. And then ultimately, the amendments are either voted up or down, they're included or they're not, and then House will release its budget. And then the process begins again. House Ways and Means presents its proposal. There's an opportunity for amendment, there's debate, and then the Senate will present its budget. And then both of those budgets go to a conference committee where they resolve any differences and ultimately end up in the final budget was presented to the governor for his signature or amendments. And you can track all of that with again, line items throughout the process. All right, any questions regarding the budget?
Yeah, so how do you track it? So you have to go back to the number, like let's say if we go back to the budget line item for the commission, and we can then click on there to track to see where it is currently. I don't understand. I see this, I like this, but I don't see how this, how we do that.
Yeah, so I'm going to go back to the 2019 budget. So it's a little bit different because it's not like you track the individual line item. Instead, what you do is you can kind of follow as the legislature is moving through the process. So I've just gone back to the FY19 budget. And again, let me see if I can show you what that looks like as we move through it. So here is the governor's budget in FY19. All right, so here we are, governor's budget. Control F, 0950-0000. Commission on the Status of Women. The governor, in our FY19 budget, funded the commission at $118,000. And we said, thank you, Mr. Governor, but actually we'd like a little bit more, sir. And so what we did is we went to House Ways and Means and we said, can we have more? And we made the case for that. And so then, let me see if I remember this correctly. You have to kind of know where to look. And so in those cases where you're like, I'm not sure where to look, please feel free to call our office and we can guide you through the process. So I know that we're in section 2 of the budget. So here we are here. And so House Ways and Means said, $118,000, folks. And we said, well, that sounds not exactly what we wanted. And so we went to our friends in the House and we said, specifically, we partnered with the chair of the caucus and asked her to file an amendment. And let's see if I can get there. There we go. All right, and so here is the final version of the House. Here we are again, Control Find, 0950, and here we are at 170,000, which is exciting. So our advocacy was effective. An amendment was filed by the chair of the House Caucus of women legislators, excuse me. And then we contacted the legislators in the House and said, an amendment has been filed, please would you support it? And then they had the opportunity to sign on to that amendment. And then that amendment goes before the full House for discussion, along with hundreds of other amendments to the budget. And there's a decision about if that amendment is going to stay or go. And we were fortunate because we were able to convince the legislators to keep it. So if I remember correctly, I believe Senate Ways and Means came out with 170. They followed the House recommendation. Let's just double check that. Yep, so the Senate matched what the House did. And so we were very confident going into conference committee that we would see 170,000 as a final number. That doesn't always happen. In fact, very unfortunately, I've seen it not happen. But in this particular session, with this particular advocacy, it did. So here is the final budget with the commission at 170,000. Does that make sense? I want to make sure that I haven't lost anybody. Any questions regarding budget or tracking of the budget? All right, so just quickly reviewing everything, we have talked about the budget and talked about tracking the process of the budget, or moving through the process as the budget is developed. We've talked about bills and ways to track the bills. Again, it's really advantageous to know the specific bill number. I did also reference the general laws. So this is where if you are interested in taking a look at how a particular language of a bill will make amendments to the general laws, this is where you can search for it in these sections over here. We talked about the committees and the way that the committee hears bills and how it's important to build relationships with members of the committee that are reviewing your legislation. Over here is the tab related to the hearings. So if you can get a calendar of the hearings here. And there's people that are regular, they attend, like have a regular presence in Beacon Hill, and they have an enthusiasm for really participating. And so they are regularly checking this website and seeing what is being heard, and they're sitting in and listening to legislators debate. So this is exciting. Sometimes what I'll do is if I have interns that I want to be able to have the experience of seeing a hearing or participating in a hearing, I'll use this calendar to kind of see what's on the docket for the day. And I might say there's a joint committee on children, families, and persons with disabilities, and these are the bills that they're going to hear. Perhaps you might want to go and sit in to see that conversation. And all the information about where that hearing is going to be held is listed right here.
Are these open to the public, or do you need to kind of register to go?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. They're all open to the public. And again, as I mentioned earlier, if you are interested in offering testimony, that is something that is also open to all members of the public. Oftentimes, if I'm going to head up to a hearing, I'll print this out so that I can follow along. The other thing, if you haven't yet attended a hearing, it's really exciting. I would, if you have plans to be on or near Beacon Hill, and are interested in observing, I would definitely recommend check the calendar for that day, see if there's anything that's being heard that you're interested in, and just go sit in and listen and watch the process, so that when there's something that you're really passionate about, you're prepared, like you know what the experience is going to be like, and you'll be more confident when you're called to offer testimony. I always talk when I'm doing advocacy training about how important testimony from members of the public is. It really can't be understated. I think that legislators are frequently looking to their constituents for guidance in terms of where they should be on a particular position and how they should respond, and as frankly as experts. And I think when we're working with our partners in the community, it's important for us to articulate that you are an expert in the experience of your life, and policy is being made that you have a responsibility to participate in, and we should empower them and support them in advocacy work. So again, if you have the opportunity to sit and experience a hearing, if you haven't done so in the past, I would strongly recommend it. When I attend the hearings, I always come here first. I print the page off so that I have all of the details, the time, the location, the bills that are going to be heard on that particular day. The hearing rooms have become more multimedia friendly, so that they have screens up, and there's this process where you can kind of see the committee move through the list of bills that they're hearing on that particular day, but not all committees use it to its full capacity. So it's available, but it's being, they're transitioning to, again, the more effective use of technology in their hearings. And then finally, over here is a bunch of resources and tools that are kind of interesting to check out. You can, actually, hold on, I want to make sure I'm not missing. What I was trying to show you is it's possible via this website to watch the sessions. So the Senate session or the House session, you can't see it right now because there's not a formal session that's been scheduled, but you're able to actually get like a little video screen on your computer, and it's something that I regularly do. It's sort of like watching C-SPAN, if you will. Instead of watching Congress, you can watch the Massachusetts legislature in session. And I did it for a number of different reasons. I think I like to kind of follow along to see what, how are they moving through things, what's the process that they are taking. It helped to inform me as I was thinking about our work here. I'm also, I'm really, really bad with names and faces, and so I use it as a way to kind of continually reinforce, okay, that's such and such legislator and that's such and such legislator. It was helpful as I was working to really get stuck in my brain very clearly who each legislator was. Again, it's sort of something, if you're interested in it, I would recommend it because I think it is a good learning experience. So kind of come back to this website and see when they have a formal session scheduled, the opportunity to actually watch that in real time. sorry, so I was going over here to the State House tab. So different things. You can take a on-site tour. So there are regular tours that are offered by the docents, and here is the information related to that. Again, if you haven't taken a tour of the State House, I would recommend it for a variety of reasons, one of which is because it's a beautiful building with but really, truly a lot of historical significance. Or you can take a virtual tour from the comfort of your own home. There is other training over here. There are other training resources here as well. And it is a great opportunity to use this website in order to better familiarize yourself. The Citizens Legislative Seminar, so if you're really, really interested in digging into the work of learning about the ins and the outs of the legislature and how citizens can engage, this is a great program that they offer every year to train citizens in that process, and I think it's pretty exciting. So you can take a look at all of that information right here. This is pictures from that. All right, so any other questions regarding the General Court website and how you can use the General Court website in order to support your advocacy? No? Well, I really hope that I did a reasonably good job of demystifying the website and bringing you in just a little bit more than perhaps you had previously been familiar with it. Sasha, do you have any questions? No? No. All right. Again, as I said in the past, or said previously, if you are working on this website and you think that you can find you're looking for information, you know it's there, but you can't quite get to it, do not hesitate to call our office. We're happy to walk you through it. If there is one of those tricky things like what's the bill number, what's the line item, what section of the budget is this going to exist in, those barriers in terms of getting to the information that is there and waiting for you, again, do not hesitate to call the office. We are happy to answer your question, or we're happy at the very least to know that there's a question that we don't have the answer to, and that we'll be excited to reach out to partners in the State House that can help us connect with the information that's needed. If you would like us to do a more in-depth training of this with members of your commission, so Anna and Patty, we'd be happy to visit with them and talk about how to use the General Court website, to talk about the importance of legislative advocacy, to talk about the legislative process. All of those things are workshops that we would be pleased to offer. So again, continue to think about us as a resource. I was thrilled that you took time for your day to join us, and we'll wish you well for the rest of the afternoon and for a lovely weekend.
Thank you so much. This was incredibly helpful.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks, Jill.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.